When a boy sitting in a booth at the Mountain View Diner in Rainelle, West Virginia stared at a plate of scrambled eggs and bacon like it was a math problem he didn't know how to solve, the man in the next booth wouldn't have noticed, except the boy picked up his fork, cut one piece of scrambled egg the size of a dime, put it in his mouth, chewed it 14 times, and then looked at the plate like he was calculating something. Not eating, calculating. Measuring every bite against something only he could see. And when the waitress came by and said, "Honey, you want some toast with that?" The boy's hands started shaking, and he said, "No thank you, I'm already over." Over what? The man leaned forward. The boy looked at his plate and whispered, "He weighs me every morning. If I'm up, I don't eat the next day. I'm trying to figure out how much of this I can have without going up. Not picky, not full, not sick." A 9-year-old boy sitting in front of a plate of breakfast doing mental arithmetic on calories and ounces because someone at home put him on a scale every morning and tied his meals to the number. A child eating like a prisoner rationing supplies, 1 dime-sized piece at a time, 14 chews, counting. The Mountain View Diner sat on Route 60 in Rainelle, Greenbrier County, the kind of diner that hadn't changed its menu since 1987 and didn't need to. Vinyl booths with tape on the seams, coffee that stayed hot for an hour, and a bell above the door that announced every person who walked in. Breakfast crowd was truckers, retirees, and whoever had the early shift at the lumber mill. Holt Jessup was eating a short stack and sausage in the booth behind the boy. He was 46 years old, 6 feet 2 inches, 265 pounds, with a dark brown beard streaked with gray and forearms covered in faded blackwork tattoos that ran from his wrists to his elbows. He'd been a master electrician for 24 years, the kind of electrician who could rewire a house blindfolded and had the burn marks on his fingers to prove he'd learned the hard way early. He was president of the Greenbrier Valley MC, a 10-member club based out of Lewisburg that met at Holt's shop on Tuesdays and rode the Midland Trail on Saturdays. Subscribe to Asphalt Angels and hit that notification bell, because this story starts with a boy counting his chews at a breakfast plate and a man in the next booth who heard the number. Holt turned around in his booth. The boy was small, not just young small, but restricted small, the kind of thin that comes from the body doing the best it can with not enough. Pale arms, sharp collarbones visible above the collar of a gray t-shirt that was clean but too big, like it was bought for a future version of him that wasn't being allowed to arrive. Brown hair buzzed short, dark circles under his eyes. "Hey, buddy, you said someone weighs you?" The boy froze. The fork stopped. His eyes went to the door like he was measuring the distance. "I'm not going to do anything. I'm just in the next booth eating pancakes. My name's Holt. What's yours?" "Owen. Owen Skaggs." "Owen, who weighs you?" "My stepdad. Ray. He weighs me every morning at 6:15 before school. I stand on the scale in the bathroom, and he watches the number, and he writes it down in a notebook. He's got a notebook, a little black notebook, and it has my weight every day going back to January. If the number goes up, I don't eat that day. If it goes down or stays the same, I get 1 meal. 1. Not breakfast and lunch and dinner. 1. 1 meal a day? On good days, on bad days, when the number goes up, nothing. Water. He lets me have water, and I can have an apple. He says apples don't count. I don't know why apples don't count. He has rules, and the rules don't always make sense, but you follow them because the alternative is worse. What's the alternative? He takes the scale away, and then I don't know where I am. At least with the scale I know. If I'm at 67, I'm okay. If I'm at 68, I'm in trouble. If I'm at 69, I don't eat. He says I have a number, and my number is 67, and that's where I stay. He calls it my set point. He says everyone has a set point, and mine is 67. If this story has touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe to Asphalt Angels, because a 9-year-old boy had been assigned a number by his stepfather, and his meals depended on hitting it every single morning. Owen, how long has this been going on? Since he moved in, August. So, 8 months? He moved in with my mom in August, and the first thing he did was throw out all the cereal and the bread and the chips and the ice cream, and he said we were going to eat clean. My mom thought it was good at first. She said Ray was health conscious. That's the word she used. Health conscious. He bought a scale and put it in the bathroom, and he started weighing himself every morning, and then he started weighing me. Does he weigh your mom? He used to. She's skinny now. She used to be. She wasn't big, she was normal. But now she's skinny, and she's tired all the time, and she goes to bed at 8 o'clock. She doesn't have energy. Ray says she looks great. She doesn't look great. She looks like she's disappearing. Does Ray eat? Ray eats whatever he wants. Burgers, fries, pizza. He eats in front of us. He'll sit at the table with a plate of spaghetti, and my mom will have a salad, and I'll have half a chicken breast, and he'll eat his spaghetti and talk about discipline. He says discipline is the most important thing. He says most people are weak. He says he's teaching us not to be weak. But he eats whatever he wants. Yeah. He says he's earned it. He says when you're in control, you can eat what you want. When you're not in control, someone else decides. He's deciding for us until we learn. A 9-year-old boy in a diner explaining a control system built around a bathroom scale and a black notebook, and the logic was airtight. Not because it made sense, but because the person who built it had made it impossible to argue with. The rules were circular. Follow the rules and you eat. Break the rules and you don't. The rules are set by the person who doesn't follow them. That's not health. That's control dressed up as care. If you're watching this story, hit that hype button right now. It's free, takes 1 second, and helps these stories reach the people who need them. Now, back to the story. Owen, why are you here right now? At the diner? My mom dropped me off. She's at the Dollar General getting stuff. She gave me $8 and said I could get breakfast. She does this sometimes. On mornings when Ray leaves early for work, she takes me somewhere and lets me eat. She calls it our secret breakfast. She says, "Don't tell Ray." We've done it maybe 5 times since January. This is the most I've eaten all week. He looked at the plate. Half the eggs were still there. 3 strips of bacon, 2 untouched. He'd eaten maybe a quarter of the food in 15 minutes, and his hands were shaking. But I can't finish it. I want to. I'm hungry. I'm always hungry. But if I eat too much, and the number goes up tomorrow morning, I lose tomorrow's meal. And tomorrow's Wednesday, and Wednesday is the day my school has pizza for lunch. And if I don't get a meal tomorrow, I can't eat the pizza. And school pizza is the best thing that happens to me all week. So, I'm doing the math. How much of this can I eat right now and still be at 67 tomorrow at 6:15? He was 9 years old, and he was sitting in a diner doing caloric math against a bathroom scale, 18 hours in the future, calculating whether a strip of bacon today was worth a slice of pizza tomorrow. Living inside a spreadsheet built by a man who ate spaghetti in front of a hungry child and called it discipline. Owen, does your school know about this? I eat at school, lunch. That's usually my one meal on good days. Ray says school lunch counts as my meal. On bad days, I go to the nurse and say I have a stomachache, and she lets me lie down. I don't have a stomachache. I'm hungry. But hungry and stomachache feel the same when you're 9. Has anyone at school asked about your weight? The gym teacher, Mr. Combs, he pulled me aside last month and said I looked thinner and asked if everything was okay at home. I said yes. I lied. I lie about it because Ray told me if anyone finds out he'll leave, and if he leaves my mom will be alone, and she can't be alone because she can't pay the rent by herself. So I keep the secret, because keeping the secret keeps the house. Holt stood up. Owen, I need to make a call. I'm going to step right outside that door. You can see me through the window. I'm not leaving. Are you calling someone about me? Yeah, buddy, I am. Owen looked at his plate. He picked up a strip of bacon and put the whole thing in his mouth and chewed it fast, like he was stealing it, like the window for eating was closing. Okay, can I finish the eggs while you're on the phone? You can finish everything on that plate. You can order more if you want. I want toast. She asked me about toast. I want toast. Holt flagged the waitress. Get him toast, and orange juice, and whatever else he wants. Put the whole table on my check. He walked outside and called 911. Greenbrier County 911. What's your emergency? My name is Holt Jessup. I'm at the Mountain View Diner on Route 60 in Rainelle. I've got a 9-year-old boy in here named Owen Skaggs, who's being starved by his stepfather under the guise of a health routine. The stepfather, first name Ray, that's all I've got, weighs this child every morning at 6:15 a.m. and restricts his food intake based on the number on the scale. 1 meal a day if the number is acceptable. 0 meals if it goes up. The child is visibly underweight, shaking, and sitting in a diner doing caloric math on a plate of eggs because he's trying to figure out how much he can eat without gaining weight before tomorrow's weigh-in. I need a deputy and CPS at this location. He texted the Greenbrier Valley MC group chat. Mountain View Diner, Rainelle. 9-year-old being starved. Stepdad runs a scale on him every morning. Kids counting bites at a breakfast plate. Need brothers. If Asphalt Angels has become part of your week, consider joining the channel membership. Just a couple bucks a month keeps these stories coming. Links below. Now, back to the ending. Through the window, Holt watched Owen eat. The boy had the toast now, and he was eating it in big bites, not the dime-sized calculated pieces from before, but real bites, the kind of bites a 9-year-old takes when nobody's counting. He was eating like the clock was running, which it was. His mother would be back from Dollar General soon, and the secret breakfast would be over, and the math would start again. 2 brothers pulled in, Merritt and Dawes. Merritt was a plumber who looked like he'd been built from cinder blocks, 5 feet 11 inches, 250, with a shaved head and a beard that reached his chest. Dawes was a roofer with a silver beard and a calm that made nervous people less nervous. They walked in, sat in the booth across from Owen, and Merritt put a candy bar on the table. That's for later, Merritt said. Put it in your pocket. Owen looked at the candy bar like it was a grenade. He looked at the door. He looked at Merritt. He looked at the candy bar again. Something was happening behind his eyes. The calculation, the math, the number on the scale tomorrow morning, the consequences of a candy bar measured in ounces against a set point measured in punishment. Then something else happened. Something that wasn't math. He picked it up, slid it into his pocket, and patted the pocket twice to make sure it was real. It's a Snickers, Owen said. It's a Snickers, Merritt said. I haven't had a Snickers since summer. Then you're overdue. Dawes didn't say much. He sat in the booth and watched the boy, and at one point he got up and walked to the restroom and stood in there for about 2 minutes, and when he came back, his eyes were red and his jaw was tight, and he sat back down and said to Owen, "You like pancakes?" "I don't know. I think so. I can't remember." Dawes flagged the waitress. "Short stack for the kid." He looked at Owen. "You're going to remember." A Greenbrier County deputy arrived, a woman named Halsey, who took one look at Owen and called for a second unit. CPS caseworker Brenda Mollahan arrived 20 minutes later, a small woman with bifocals who'd been doing child welfare in the county for 16 years. She sat across from Owen in the booth. "Owen, tell me about the scale." He told her. The 6:15 weigh-in, the notebook, the number 67, the one-meal rule, the apple exception, the mother dropping weight, the spaghetti, the discipline speeches, the gym teacher he lied to. Where does Ray keep the notebook? Kitchen drawer, the one by the fridge. It's black with a rubber band around it. Brenda went to the house, a rental on 2nd Avenue, half a mile from the diner. She came back 45 minutes later. Her face was the face of someone who'd seen the evidence and wished she hadn't. The notebook is real, daily entries going back to August 14th. The boys' weight every morning in Ray's handwriting. Entries include notations, check marks on days the weight was at or below 67, X marks on days it was above. Margin notes include no meal on X days. The scale is in the bathroom. The refrigerator has a combination lock on it, a master lock, the kind you'd put on a school locker, threaded through the handles. The cabinets above the stove have child locks on them, not the baby-proofing kind, the kind with a key. The key was on Ray's keychain, which was on the counter. A combination lock on the refrigerator. Child locks on the cabinets with a key only Ray carried. The house itself was built to restrict a 9-year-old's access to food. The architecture of starvation disguised as structure. Ray Sizemore, not Skaggs, different last name from Owen and his mother, was 34, employed at an auto body shop in Lewisburg. He was arrested at work that afternoon. Charges included child cruelty, child neglect, and domestic battery by means of food deprivation. When the deputy told him the charges, Ray said, "I was trying to help him. He was getting soft." The deputy wrote that down. Owen's mother, Tammy Skaggs, 31, was at the house when Brenda arrived. She was thin, not slim. Thin the way people are thin when they've been ground down by someone else's rules until there's less of them than there used to be. Tammy cooperated fully. She showed Brenda the lock on the fridge. She handed over the key to the cabinet locks. She cried in the kitchen and said she knew it was wrong, and she didn't stop it because Ray said it was for Owen's health, and she'd started to believe it because when someone tells you something every single day, you start to hear it in your own voice, and then it's not their idea anymore, it's yours, and that's when you're trapped. CPS placed Owen with his maternal grandfather, Pete Skaggs, 63, a retired coal miner in Quinwood, who lived alone in a 3-bedroom house with a kitchen that had no locks on anything. Pete drove to Rainelle in 35 minutes. He walked into the diner. The diner was the staging point now. Owen still in the booth, his plate empty, a second plate of toast demolished, a short stack reduced to syrup smears, the candy bar gone from his pocket and the wrapper on the table. And he looked at his grandson, and his face did something that faces do when they see proof of what they suspected but couldn't prove. He sat down across from Owen and put his hands on the table, palms up, like he was showing the boy he had nothing to hide. "Come on, bud. Papa's got supper going." "What's for supper?" "Whatever you want." Owen looked at him like the sentence was in another language. "Whatever you want." 3 words that had been removed from his vocabulary for 8 months. Whatever you want meant the opposite of the notebook, and the scale, and the number 67, and the locks on the fridge, and the one-meal days, and the apple exception. "Can I have 2 things?" "You can have 12 things. You can have the whole kitchen." Owen stood up from the booth. He was small and thin, and he moved carefully, the way someone moves when they've been taught that taking up space is a violation. He walked to his grandfather, and Pete put his arm around his shoulder, easy, natural, the way a grandfather puts his arm around a grandson. And Owen leaned into it, and they walked to the truck. On the drive to Quinwood, Owen was quiet for 10 minutes. Then he said, "Papa, do you have a scale?" "No." "Do you have a notebook?" "I've got a crossword puzzle book." "That's different." "That's very different." Owen was quiet again. Then, "Do you lock your fridge?" "Son, the only lock in my house is on the front door, and half the time I forget that one." At Pete's house that first night, Owen opened the refrigerator. It opened. No lock, no combination, no permission required. He stood there with the door open and looked at the shelves. Milk, eggs, leftover soup, lunch meat, cheese, a bowl of grapes, a half-empty bottle of ketchup, a pie. "There's a pie. Cherry, made it yesterday. Can I have some?" "After supper. That's the only rule about pie. It comes after supper, not because you have to earn it, because that's just when pie happens." Owen ate supper that night. Meatloaf, mashed potatoes, green beans, a roll, a glass of milk. He ate all of it. Then he ate a slice of cherry pie. Then he sat at the table and didn't move for a while. Pete asked if he was okay. "I ate until I was full. I haven't done that since July." "You're going to do it every night now." "What about the scale?" "There's no scale in this house. I've never owned a scale. Don't believe in them." Owen went to the bathroom that night and looked at the floor where a scale would be. Bare linoleum. No scale. He stood on the spot anyway. Stood there for a few seconds, looking down at his feet, looking at a number that wasn't there. Then he stepped off and went to bed. The Greenbrier Valley MC started a program called Empty Scale. Named for the bathroom floor Owen stood on at Pete's house, the place where the scale used to be, the number that used to decide whether he ate. The program partnered with school nurses across Greenbrier County to track students whose weight dropped more than 5% in a semester and cross-reference with home welfare checks. The card read, "A child on a diet. He didn't choose, is a child being controlled. Ask who's holding the scale." 6 months later, Owen was in 4th grade. He'd gained 11 pounds. Pete said the boy ate like he was making up for lost time, which he was. His favorite food was cherry pie, which Pete made every Sunday. Owen helped now. He could roll the crust and cut the lattice strips, and he did it carefully, precisely, the way someone does something when the kitchen used to be a locked room, and now it's their favorite place. He wore an apron that was too big for him, and he got flour on his face, and he didn't care because nobody was going to weigh the flour or count the calories or write anything down in a notebook. Pete had one rule about the kitchen: clean up after yourself. That was it. Not how much you could eat, not when you could eat, not what you were allowed to touch. Just clean up. Owen followed that rule with a kind of reverence, because a rule that was fair, a rule that made sense and applied equally and wasn't designed to punish, was so new to him that he treated it like a gift. The gym teacher, Mr. Combs, called Pete in October and said Owen was the fastest kid in class. Not because he'd trained, because he finally had fuel. A body that had been running on fumes for 8 months was now running on meatloaf and cherry pie and whatever you want, and it turned out the kid was fast. He'd always been fast. He just hadn't had the calories to show it. Owen still did the math sometimes. Pete caught him once, staring at a plate of spaghetti, moving pieces around with his fork, calculating. "What are you doing, bud?" "Nothing. Old habit. You don't have to count anymore." "I know. My brain still does it sometimes. The counselor says it'll stop. She says the math was a survival thing, and my brain hasn't gotten the memo that I'm safe yet." "You're safe." "I know. My stomach knows. My brain's a little behind." Holt drove past the Mountain View Diner one morning. He looked through the window. The booth where Owen had sat was occupied by 2 truckers eating short stacks. The toast rack was full. The coffee was hot. Nobody at that table was counting bites or measuring chews or calculating whether breakfast would cost them dinner. He ordered a coffee to go. The waitress, same one who'd offered Owen toast, looked at him and said, "That boy, he doing okay?" "He's doing great. He had pie last night." "Pie," she said, and smiled and poured the coffee. Be the one who hears a child counting chews and asks what the number means. Thank you for watching this story. If it reminded you that control doesn't always leave marks, but always leaves scars, please share it. Subscribe to Asphalt Angels for more stories, proving that sometimes the most dangerous person at the table is the one who decides who gets to eat. Tell us in the comments, have you ever seen someone use food as a weapon?